Suge Knight was in that car. He watched Tupac die, and every single time he opened his mouth about it, the story changed. Suge Knight sat next to Tupac the night he got shot in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996. He was the last person to speak to him. He was in the ambulance. He held his hand. Nobody on this planet had more information about what happened that night than Suge Knight. But here's the thing. Every time Suge Knight sat down to talk about it, the details changed. The story shifted. New names appeared. New reasons came out. And now, from inside a prison cell, he says he is writing a book with the real truth. So before that book drops, we are going back. We are listening to everything he already said, and we are letting you decide what is true. The night everything changed? September 7th, 1996, Las Vegas, Nevada. Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight had just watched Mike Tyson knock out Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand in under 2 minutes. The fight was over before most people found their seats. After the fight, a fight broke out in the lobby. Orlando Anderson, by a member of the Southside Crips, got jumped by members of Suge Knight's crew. Tupac was in the middle of it. Security cameras caught everything. Later that night, a white BMW pulled up next to Suge Knight's black BMW 750IL on Flamingo Road. Someone inside that white car opened fire. Tupac Shakur was hit 4 times. 2 bullets hit him in the chest. 1 hit his hand, 1 hit his thigh. Suge Knight was grazed in the head by a bullet fragment. Suge kept driving. He said his only thought was getting Tupac to the hospital. Now here's what most people do not know. Suge Knight was the only living person inside that car. He was the only one who could tell the world what happened in those final minutes, and he knew it. So exactly 1 week after Tupac died, he sat down in front of a camera for the very first time and told his story. He was calm, he was composed, he spoke like a man who had nothing to hide. He said Tupac looked at him and told him he needed the doctor more than Tupac did. He said they were laughing the whole way to the hospital. He said Tupac was cracking jokes about the blood on Suge's head. Listen to exactly what he said.
My whole thing was, Pac, he was shot. I'm like, you shot? I'm gonna get you to the hospital. I'm driving, telling him I'm gonna get to the hospital, kick back. Pac looked at me and said, you know what? You need the doctor more than me. You the one shot in your head. And we laughed the whole time going to find our way to the hospital. That's the conversation we had. It wasn't, Pac was a man the whole time. It wasn't that he was like, oh, I'm shot. He cracking jokes. He like, yeah, they shot me. He said, but you shot in your head. Look at your head bleed. Look how much it's bleed. That was Pac.
That is the version he gave to the world in September 1996. 2 friends laughing on the way to the hospital. No fear, no panic, no accusations. That was Suge Knight's first story. But here's the question that version of the story never answered. Who was in that white BMW? Who gave the order? And why does Suge Knight, a man who ran one of the most powerful labels in hip-hop history, never seem to find out? The story that changed. For years after Tupac died, Suge Knight said very little about who pulled the trigger. He went to prison on a parole violation just weeks after the shooting. He served 5 years. When he came out, he was a different man running a different death row records. But the story he told about that night stayed mostly the same. 2 friends, laughing in the car. Nobody knew who did it. Then something happened that changed everything. Suge Knight was out on parole. He had a box at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, a private suite where he watched Lakers games. One night he stepped outside for some fresh air, and standing right there in front of him was a man named Keefe Davis. The streets called him Keefe D. Here's what you need to know about Keefe D. He was the uncle of Orlando Anderson, the same man who got jumped at the MGM Grand just hours before Tupac was shot. Keefe D was a senior member of the Southside Compton Crips, and in 2023, Las Vegas police arrested him and charged him with the murder of Tupac Shakur. But that night at the Staples Center, none of that had happened yet. Keefe D walked up to Suge Knight and started talking. And what he said, according to Suge, was not what anyone expected. Suge says Keefe D told him that Puffy, Sean Combs, had paid $1 million to have both Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur killed that night in Las Vegas. He said the money came through. He said that is how everything happened. Listen to Suge Knight tell it in his own words, speaking from inside prison. Years after that first calm interview in 1996.
He said, but I'm going to give you something that's real true, and I've been wanting to tell you because we've been knowing each other, since we was kids. So Keefe D was like, look, I need the money. Puffy and them supposed to give me $1 million. They gave us most of the money, or half of the money. And that's how everything unraveled for is what happened in Vegas. At that time, and one of the best friends I had ever had in life is Pac. And he ain't here.
Stop right there. In 1996, Suge Knight said he and Tupac were laughing on the way to the hospital. Nobody knew anything, no names, no money, no orders. Now, years later from prison, he is naming Puffy. He is naming Keefe D. He is saying there was $1 million contract on both of their heads. That is not the same story. Those are two completely different accounts from the same man. So which version is true? And if the second version is true, why did it take this long to say it? The third story. By 2025, Suge Knight had been inside a California state prison for years. He was serving 28 years for voluntary manslaughter. He ran over and killed a man named Terry Carter outside a Compton burger stand in January 2015. He pleaded no contest in 2018. From inside that prison, he kept talking. He kept doing interviews through his tablet. He kept telling the story of that night in Las Vegas. But this time, the details were different again. This time, he was not talking about laughing in the car. He was not talking about Puffy and $1 million contracts. This time, he was talking about a chain, Tupac's chain, a custom piece Tupac had made himself. He was so proud of it, he could barely stop talking about it. And according to Suge, when the bullets started flying and the blood started pouring, Tupac's last concern was not his life. It was that chain. Listen to what Suge said.
When we was in the car, that motherfucker was full of blood. Pac was like, hey, hold my motherfucking chain. He said, don't let nothing happen to my chain. We was in the ambulance. They said, what you put? He snatched it off. Said, what you putting this on me for? He said, man, no matter what, if anything happened to me, make sure you always keep my chain. And he was like, shit. They might really want me to go back to prison. Now, he said, if they take me back to prison, I might have to die around this motherfucker. We laughing.
3 interviews, 3 different versions of the same night. In 1996, Tupac's last words were that he loved Suge. They were laughing about the blood on Suge's head. Years later, Suge said Puffy paid $1 million and Keefe D gave him up. And now, from prison, the last thing Tupac said was about a chain. Here's what you need to understand about that. In a court of law, when a witness changes their story across multiple statements, lawyers call that inconsistency. It does not automatically mean the person is lying, but it does mean that every version of the story has to be questioned. Every detail has to be tested. Suge Knight is not just a witness. He was the only person in that car. He is the only living person who knows exactly what was said. And he has now given 3 different accounts across 30 years. Here is my read on this. Suge Knight knows more than he has ever said publicly. The calm version from 1996, the one where everything was jokes and love, that version was told by a man whose lawyers had just told him not to say anything about the shooting itself. He was controlled. He was careful. The prison version, where Puffy paid $1 million and Keefe D confessed at a Lakers game. That version came out after Suge had nothing left to lose. He was already serving 28 years. His label was gone. His power was gone. The only thing he had left was a story. And now he is writing a memoir, announced in March 2026 from inside prison. He says the book is called Your Pain Is My Joy. He says it will tell his truth about Tupac and Death Row Records. 30 years later, 3 versions of the story. And now a book. The question is not whether Suge Knight is telling the truth now. The question is, which version of the truth is he actually going to put in print? 3. Tupac Shakur was pronounced dead on September 13, 1996 at the University Medical Center in Las Vegas, 6 days after he was shot. And to this day, no one has ever been convicted of pulling the trigger. Suge Knight was the last person to speak to him, the last person to hold his hand, the only witness inside that car. And across 30 years, his story has never stayed the same. Here's the question nobody can answer. If Suge Knight finally writes down everything he knows, will it be the truth or will it be version number 4?